All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and while I realize that this probably won't get seen by a lot of people, I only told people that it was going to be live a little while ago. YouTube's not really promoting streams, and I also said it was going to be starting at 9:30. Too bad it's starting now. So this video, I was going to do a video over on Wes's channel, Thinking Critical, if you know that channel about comics, just a few weeks ago. And I backed out because it was right after C2E2 and the coronavirus stuff started coming in. And I was going to talk on his channel about how I saw things from the convention standpoint, as it had to do with coronavirus. But he did a video with Perch, and so I backed out at the last second because a good chunk of what I was going to talk about was stuff that he did already. But there was another part of it that I didn't talk about doing because it was quite, it was possibly a hot take. It was possibly controversial, and I thought, man, I don't want to start spouting off stuff on somebody else's channel. That might, they might not be ready for, it's your channel. You can say whatever you want on your channel. But I was a little worried about just spouting off a bunch of stuff that might get the person, uncomfortable with what I was saying. And so I was like, well, if you feel like talking about it, see how you sit on it. And it's now April 15th, and I sat on it for a while, and I still want to talk about it. And that has to do with everything that I saw, how being at C2E2 affected my comic book, how I see comic books now, how I plan on talking about comic books now, because I haven't made a comic book video in a little while. And I've changed, I stopped doing my regular content for the most part, except for 420 movie reviews, which is a bit of a lark to have some fun during this coronavirus downtime, quarantine, lockdown, what have you. But I don't want to forget about comic books. And I see I got Desiree here who's saying, went to the outside for the first time today, picked up some stuff at Target via delivery to car, but just been out, felt like a dang relief. Yeah, it's nice when you get to go outside these days. Like I just got home and the roads are like just completely desolate. So here's the C2E2 part of the things is that I had planned, if you've seen my convention content already, this is kind of going over old stuff, but I spent the entire time at C2E2. If I wasn't walking around looking at things, I was dealing with all comic book content, talking to writers, artists, what have you. I spent the entire time completely in the comic book headspace and seeing like how comic books were, the different stores and everything and what they had about comic books and all that, and been to watch some of the panels and been through so many lines and talked to so many people. And I gotta say, after last year's Wizard World and C2E2 last year, where I was going through celebrity lines, getting autographs and I actually felt all right about the celebrity lines for the most part. They seemed really, really cool. What I'm not as cool with is the comic book section of the con that I went to. Forget the fact that there were people already wearing masks in February that was making things already edgy. Forget the fact that when the convention first started, you were able to shake hands with people. And before the end of the first day, it was fist bumps or nothing. All that, there was no social distancing back then. People were jammed up close, real close in those places. The thing about the con that changed the way I think about comics right now was the atmosphere, the fans, everything. I'm not as in love with modern comic books right now as I was before I went to the convention. And we'll get into the fact that there's problems in the comic book industry in just a minute, because there are. But what really, I think it's stuff that I already knew, right? It's like they say, don't meet your heroes. They'll just disappoint you. So forget about, again, that there were some underwhelming people to talk to. Like my Jim Lee experience was really almost non-existent. I could have just handed somebody the books and let them take the books and have them sign them and bring them out to me. That's about as meaningful as that experience was. And that fucked me up a little bit. That just kind of, but what do you expect, really? I'm in the room with the president of DC. You think he really gives a shit about, the fact that I had a comic book sitting in a box for 30 years before I finally got it signed by the guy? Honestly, whatever. No, what's killing it for me was the business side of things. And I talked about that already in length, about how are any of these books going to be worth anything when people are stacking, up all these things, and everybody's using CGC, and everybody's trying to make a profit off of comic books that I feel like, have they ever really been that profitable of a thing in the first place? How much of this is nostalgia? But so much of this felt like big business. Stores with teams of people waiting in lines for each other, taking turns, getting ready to just flip it at their store or flip it on eBay or flip it on Amazon, which is their right to do. But it really just made me feel icky. And I don't like using a word like icky because it sounds juvenile, but it made me feel just kind of sad for the business. Like all these people with stacks of that Batman issue that everybody wanted, the first appearance of Punchline. People with stacks of these things, having somebody, Tony Daniels, signing them, and Tinian signing all of these huge stacks of books that people couldn't get their hands on because somebody thought that it was going to be worth some money someday. And those weren't just stores buying them. They were fans that were buying them. I just wanted to read the book. The other thing about it is just how commercial I really felt it all was finally. Deborah's here. Hey, Dev, what's going on? Jackio's here. Jim Lee has seen and heard it all. He's also a big problem with the current era of DC. Yeah, look, I'm not gonna get too into the whole problems with the comic book industry, but we'll touch on it in just a minute here. But the way that everything was set up, I could tell that Marvel and DC both were just, if the people that you talked to didn't feel like they were being controlled, they felt like they didn't want to be there, except for a few cases. They're like I said, Benjamin Percy was a joy. Sean Gordon Murphy was great. Like I said, I met Livio Ramondelli, who was a fantastic guy. There were cool people there. There were also people that disappoint you. And I think that goes beyond, of course, there's just going to be things like that at a convention. But it was really disheartening watching the commercialism side of it just play out, when I just wanted to say to somebody, hey, I really like your book or whatever. And so when I left and made my videos and things like that, I didn't really make that much comic book content after that, because I felt like it had been sucked out of me. Like I saw behind the curtain, I saw how the sausage was made, and it just made me really depressed. And maybe now I want to talk about comic books, but that passed, and we were still getting a few, like comic books. I was getting comic books right up until April 1st. That was that last week. But I really, for that whole month, barely made any comic book content. And a lot of it was because of how I saw things coming out of that place, and how I didn't really want to talk about a lot of these comics that I was, so keen to talk about earlier. I'm ready to say that Dawn of X is a complete, an utter, the Hox and Pox seems like a distant memory when it was less than a year ago. And I'm ready to say Dawn of X is pretty much the majority of it is a joke. And so I didn't really feel like talking about those comics. And I didn't feel, I also understood that I'm a small fish in a big pond. And it felt like the more videos that I would make for comics, the less interest there was. I wasn't getting any traction from any other, going to anybody else's channel and doing videos with them. I wasn't getting any real, it didn't really feel like I was being supported that much from anybody on that side of the channel. And that's not saying that there wasn't support, but there was just a lot of factors just keeping me from feeling like, because comic books are my passion. I can talk about comic books like all day long, but suddenly my voice on comic books, I felt like I just didn't know how to talk about them. And I still have, like, I'm still having a little bit of a problem figuring out how to talk about comics. Because right now, all I see out there amongst now the coronavirus and there being no comic books out there, which, let's talk about that really quickly. Comic books are a luxury. Comic books aren't a necessity. They aren't an essential part of my life. They are a nice thing. I like to have these. But they, let's face it, if they never come back, and I'm not saying they aren't coming back, they're coming back. But if they suddenly were just gone, I would still have all the memories that I have in these books. And people would be able to make their own comic books, or if we'd figure out some way to keep telling the stories. But they're not the end all be all of existence. And all I feel like I'm seeing out there, because there's no new comics to talk about because of the virus shutting things down, we've stopped talking about the comics. And all we're talking about is the things peripheral and about the industry and how shitty Marvel is and how shitty DC is and what's wrong with this studio and what's wrong with that studio and what's wrong with the guy in charge over here and what's wrong with the guy in charge over there. And are we the problem? Is this the problem? Is blah, blah, blah. But we're not talking about comics. We're just talking about the industry. We're complaining about the things that bug us about them. And that's fine. It's fine if that's what you want to talk about. But I feel like all I'm inundated with is info and not the passion. And I don't see the passion anymore from a lot of people, other than the passion that they have for the industry that they love. We're not talking about the thing that brought us, our interest in talking about comics, and that's the comics themselves. This isn't a diss towards anyone. However you choose to make your content, that's your business. But I was thinking about, in respect to how I was doing comic books, I didn't want to make just a bunch of videos about the industry and things like that, because that's not what interests me about comics. There have been problems in the comic book industry since there was a comic book industry. There was suddenly not going to be a change because Didio is gone or somebody might disappear from Marvel or whatever. There will always be highs and lows of every single thing out there that we love. And even in the highs, there will always be problems that we find with something. But all I'm hearing lately is just, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And while I am not trying to say that we shouldn't pay attention to those problems, I'm just saying that there's so much more to celebrate than just the bad. And so what I'm announcing for my comics book side of my channel is we're still going to be talking about comics. But since there is no new comic book day, NCBD, I'm going to start, after this video, I'm making my own new video, a new segment for my channel, where we're going to be talking about Old Comic Book Day, where we'll take, instead of new comic books, we're going to be talking about old comic books. We're going to be talking about the books that I love. We're going to be talking about the books that we've got in our boxes, and at least what I have in my boxes, and stories that I want to talk about that I haven't talked about. I had flirted with talking about East of West from issue 1 on down. I've only managed to do 2 of those. I've only done issue 1 and 2. We also were doing Middle West, and we got Killock and things like that. And I kind of got off track on that stuff because I was like, East of West, I was waiting to get the whole collection. other things is waiting to get the whole collections. Well, now I've got huge stacks of all these collections that I've been meaning to finally start reading. And now that I know what I want to talk about, I want to talk about these books. I want to talk about, just because there's no new comic book days right now, doesn't mean that we can't talk about old comic book days. And so after this video, we're going to be talking about some old comic books. One series in particular, we're going to be talking about, because I had it in my hand, we're going to be talking about what I have discovered is one of my all-time favorite X-Men stories of all time, if not one of. I'm having a hard time ranking this because I love Uncanny X-Force by Remender. We're going to be talking about the first 18 issues, the first half of Remender's run back in 2010, 11, 12. And we're going to be talking about the first 18 issues of that and how much I love it. And we're going to talk about how fun comic books are to talk about, and what, try to get the passion back, man. Maybe if I can start some fires, maybe light some fires under people's butts, we can start talking about the books again without ignoring the problems that are in the comic book industry, but talk about the characters and the stories and the books that we love. Let's not let this coronavirus thing just mire us down in all the because sitting in your house for hours on end, for days on end, for weeks on end, for what could be months on end, can bring your mind to a real dark place. And I'm no stranger to doing that, but I don't want to do it with this anymore. And so I'm going to stop this video here pretty soon. In a second, I'm going to finish these comments that we got here, but I just wanted to get that out there, that like, just because things are bad doesn't mean that we have to make everything bad. And I'm going to try to bring some positivity back to the comic book world, at least in my corner of the world, by actually talking about the books that I like and stories that I want to talk about. Real quickly, Desiree says, I think a lot of fandoms have those issues. I always recall Billy D coming to a con here, and he showed up over an hour late, bitched the whole time, and several hours early. He was such a dang diva. What We Do in the Shadows is back tonight. Thank you, Jack Yo. I will be reviewing that then, probably tomorrow morning. Because Hulu has FX next day. So I'll be watching that. So expect probably a review for What We Do in the Shadows premiere sometime tomorrow, Jack. Desiree also says, nothing is pure anymore, Rob. People can't just like things or discuss things as a fan. People want drama and want to be more of a critic than just talking about stuff as they are. East of West is so cool, says Jack here. Yes, it is. Desiree's losing her shit. She needs positivity. I've been reading a stack of 2000 ADs in the Joe Casey, Sean Phillips Wildcats run. Cool. Talk about what you love about the series you enjoy. Thank you, Deborah, for that. Yeah, this isn't even meant to like bum anybody out or whatever. It's just comic books for me have changed. I don't have the same fire as I did before about the new run of comics. And what comics are like, other than some good independent books out there and a few bright spots and everything, like Zdarsky's run on Daredevil and a few other bright spots that are here and there. I haven't really felt like talking about comics because most of the books aren't very good right now. But also, it's the environment, and I'm a huge believer in the product of being a product of my environment, and then trying to rise above that. And so, starting tonight, hopefully I get it up before tomorrow, we're going to do our nice little lengthy discussion of the Uncanny X-Force first half run of Rick Remender. I want to thank everybody that was here live watching this. Like I said, I just did it so that I could get it out there quickly and get my point across. Hopefully it made some kind of sense. Hopefully I didn't piss off a lot of people that I didn't mean to piss off, because it's just something that's been weighing on my mind lately, and I wanted to get it off my chest. So see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching, all that kind of jazz. And I hope you enjoy my Uncanny X-Force review that should be coming later on tonight and hopefully tomorrow morning. So this is Rob saying have a great night, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.